Hello, fifth graders. Today I would like to continue talking about patterns. Now, last time we talked about patterns, we used Minecraft as an example to help us figure out the rule for a pattern. But most of the time, we don't have Minecraft as an example, and most of the time, what we're given is a series of numbers like this, and we're asked to find the pattern. Well, I'm going to talk first about, we're going to actually use blocks the very first time here to talk about this. So let's do that. I have a few blocks here. And let's see if we can recreate the pattern in blocks and then figure out the rule from that. So the first one is on the 0 step. Now, I didn't talk about 0 step very much, but the 0 step, remember X stands for our step and Y stands for our blocks. The 0 step is when I didn't have a tower, when there's no tower there. But notice in this case, even when there's no tower, I still have 3 blocks. So this represents, if you think back to the last example, that pile of extra blocks that I had kind of sitting behind all of the piles. So here's the pile of blocks. This is, in this case, it's a pile of 3 blocks. Well, let's look now at the next step. So the first step, there is a tower, and the tower gives me 11 blocks. Here's 11 blocks. But actually, I don't know that the tower does give me 11 blocks. There's a tower in here, but there's also an extra pile. So which of these are the extra pile and which of these are the tower? Well, the key is right in here because I actually know how many are in the extra pile because there's no tower here and yet there's 3 blocks, which means when I do put the tower in here, there's still that pile of 3 blocks. So I can actually take the 3 and separate them out, and that will leave me, that will leave me with the tower. So in this case, the tower is 2, 4, 6, 8 blocks. So the tower here would be 8. So on the 0 step, I have a pile of 3. On the first step, I have 11 blocks. That's a pile of 3 plus my tower of 8. Well, let's look at the second one. In the second one, I'd add 8 more blocks. I'd add 1 more layer to my tower, just like we did in Minecraft. And in this case, I would expect there to be 19 blocks. Well, let's count. 4, 8, 12, 16, 17, 18, 19. So the pattern works. This tower is the right size. 8 is the right number. So each time I add, I'm going to add 8 more. I'm going to add another layer of 8, another layer of 8, another layer. But that pile of 3, again, will always be sitting there. Okay, well, that works in Minecraft. That works with blocks. But what do we do if we don't have blocks? If these go away? Well, there's a couple tricks we can use. And if you follow these tricks, you can actually find the rule for any pattern like this. Let's start with the 8, that pile, or the fact that the tower was 8. That's hidden in the pattern here. And it's hidden in a kind of an odd place. Well, it's hidden in these values, and it's hidden in the fact that these change each time. So this one changes from 3 to 11. It actually goes up by 8. And from 11 to 19, well, what do you know? 8 again. And from 19 to 27, 8 again. And 27 to 35, 8 again. So in each of these cases, it's changing by 8. And if you remember back just a couple minutes ago, we had a tower that was 8 blocks because I'm changing it by 8. Every time I add another layer of the tower, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger by 8. And that's where it's hidden. It's hidden in this numbers, between these 2 numbers and these 2 numbers and these 2 numbers. We need to find the number that it changes by each time. So in this case, it's changing by 8. And if you remember, the base of the tower was what we started our rule with. So in this case, it's changing by 8 every time one of these goes up. When it goes from 0 to 1, it gets 8 bigger. When it goes from 1 to 2, it gets 8 bigger. 2 to 3, it gets 8 bigger. So every time I go up an X, I go up by 8. So I'm going to say this is really 8 times X. And remember now, we are no longer using, we can't say 8 times X because, well, that doesn't look right. So we use the X and the 8. X no longer means times. It means X. It stands for this number that's changing. It stands for a changing number. All right. So there's my first part of my rule. But this doesn't work by itself because 2 times 8 is 16, not 19. And 3 times 8 is 24, not 27. So what's the last part of the rule? Well, the last part of the rule is that extra pile that we had sitting there. Now, we know the extra pile is 3 because we looked at it earlier. But how do we find that when we don't have Minecraft blocks or regular blocks? Where is it hidden in the numbers? And it's hidden right here. It's hidden in this 0 step, because the 0 step is what tells me what's left over after I take this part away. Because 0, if I put a 0 in here, 0 times 8 is 0. But there's still 3 left over, that extra pile. So I'm actually going to add my extra pile after my number. So this is actually 8x plus 3. And we can check that. We can check it by take 4 and let's put 4 into our equation. So 8 times 4 plus 3. Now it should give us 35. Now let's check. 8 times 4, that's 32. Plus 3 more, that's 35. So what do you know? It matches. So this must be the correct rule. But there's one more piece that we need to add, and that I'm going to need you to add when you do this. The correct notation. Yes, the rule is 8x plus 3. But really, I'm taking the x and I'm putting it into my numbers, and I'm coming out with whatever the y number is. Now, this may seem odd, but it'll start to make sense the more you do it. But what you're going to do is you're going to take this y, and you're going to say, really, that y equals 8x plus 3. So this y is equal to whatever my rule is. In this case, we're going to take x, you're going to multiply it by 8, and then you're going to add 3. So this y number is always equal to this rule. So as you go through this assignment today, I want you to make sure that you're writing it just like this. Y equals blank x plus blank. Now this may seem odd and it may seem hard to understand, but let's try one more example because I think that'll help you get it. So we're going to try, again, another table. We're not going to use the blocks this time. We're just going to use our rules, set of rules. So I've got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, same set of x's because this is the 0 step, 1 step, 2 step, 3 step, 4 step, and this is the number of blocks. Well, in this case, now on the 0 step, look at this, I've got a negative number. So if I think about what that might mean in terms of Minecraft, if you remember those points where I dug a hole in the ground, that's kind of what this stands for. I've got a hole that is too big. That is not too big. It is the quantity too big. Now, let's start with the change, the number that multiplies times x. So again, we're going to figure out how this is changing. Okay, well, this is a little odd. Negative 2 to 3. I'd have to go negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2. No, I'd have to go negative 1, 0, 1, 2, 3. So it would actually change by 5, I think. Well, let's check these and make sure that these change by 5. So what's the difference between 3 and 8? How much does it grow? Oh, what do you know? It goes by 5. 8 and 13 goes by 5. 13 and 18, 5 again. So that must mean it's changing by 5. So that must mean my tower is 5 big. Well, remember, we don't have blocks and towers anymore. Now what we have is the table. So let's write our rule out as if in the way that we know how. So it's changing by 5. 5 times x. And now I've got that extra pile that I'm going to have to count for. And remember I said last time, you look for the 0. Where is it when I take away the tower? Because I'm taking away this tower by 5 times 0 is 0, so that goes away, leaving me only whatever's left over. Now in this case, it's not a pile, because it's a negative number. It's a hole. So I'm going to have to take this number, and I'm just going to tack it onto the end here. I'm going to say, well, it's taking away 2. Whatever I've got, you got to fill in that. Whatever I get from here, I'll still have to fill in the hole. So let's check it. Let's pick 3 here. Let's bring 3 down. So this would make it 5 times 3 minus 2. 5 times 3, that's 15 minus 2. 15 minus 2, that's 13. 13 works. It fills in, it gives me exactly what this y value is. Now remember also from the last example, we're looking for the y number. So there's one more piece that we have to add to this rule, and that is the y equals. So y equals the rule 5 times this x number minus 2, and that's going to give us the values in this pattern. So I want you to take your time, notice the change in this side, and then find the x and 0 and figure out what this is going to be when that tower goes away. Do not forget this y part. This part is crucial. If you're not putting this in there, it's not going to count it as right. So make sure you remember that part. And have fun and good luck.